What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Face the Pain podcast. We are going to be talking about a few exciting things tonight. We're going to be talking about the PGF, Jon Jones, UFC 317, and who our favorite fighters are so you can get to know us a little bit better. So, tomorrow, the PGF draft,
Yes.
first episode. Everybody that we love is in that. We know so many people connected to that. Matt, Marcus, Jake a little less so connected directly to the PGF, but absolutely love those guys. Super excited for this. I think 4 teams is going to be probably the most exciting season ever.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. They've got a lot of good people lined up to compete in it. They've already put out a few YouTube videos that are kind of covering some of the fighters that they're going to have. They've also announced people like Renato Canuto is going to be one of the coaches. Extremely talented. We actually watched him last year in the PGF. He did really good. Another coach is going to be Andy Varela. Andy Varela is actually PGF champion, and he's competing for the UFC BJJ championship, first one ever, inaugural, in the upcoming weeks. It's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. My favorite thing about the PGF is the rule set. One of the big things for me is in jiu-jitsu, I love the submission being the focus. I enjoy the technical positions and holding position, all that kind of stuff. That's really great. But my favorite thing is the submission. Everybody's here to see a break or a kill. And luckily with the PGF, they have a point system that rewards action. So it's a 5-point kill system, a 3-point break system, and they also have a submission within 1 minute elbow genie point that you can win. That's from Jonathan Roberts, who's actually PGF season 1. The reason why they called him the elbow genie was because he kept landing in arm bars. He kept landing people in arm bars, and he was able to get a ton of submissions. But by the end of the season, when the playoffs actually rolled around, he was very close to not making it to the playoffs, even though he had won almost all of his matches. So they realized, hey, he won almost all of his matches and he won them within 1 point. So in the future seasons, they added the elbow genie rule, which was if you get a submission in under a minute, then you get an extra point for your team and for yourself as well. And then those points transition into both the individual and the team winning money at the end, which is really cool to see the PGF bringing money to the athletes, really creating a professional atmosphere. They actually have a team that's been purchased now, so there's like real ownership involved. Amazing owners for the PGF. You've got Keelan Brandon, and you've got Zoltan Bathory, who's actually the lead guitarist for Five Finger Death Punch. Extremely cool guy. Also a daughter of a Gracie involved. There's a bunch of old school jiu-jitsu people that are involved, and we're just looking forward to it. One of the best parts of the PGF is if you don't get a submission, you don't get any points. So there's no reward for inaction. There's no reward for a draw. A big thing that was going on in the UFC BJJ where there were split decisions and unanimous decisions in the tournament. And for me, it's like, I want to see a clear cut winner. If somebody's moving on and going to get a belt, I want to see a victory. But yeah, that really kind of covers the PGF. The draft is June 25th at 2 p.m. Central.
I did want to say one thing about that rule set.
Yeah.
The PGF is extremely focused in the same way that the UFC is for a finish, a break, kill, whatever, and the point, the bonus. If you get a minute submission, anything under, bonus for your team, for you personally, they are 100% looking for you to go out there and be offensive. They don't want the whole sit there and drawn out. They want action, 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 which is kind of the same way that the UFC has been kind of promoting fighters. They're heavily promoting people like Derek Lewis, who goes out there. He might not win all his fights, but he is exciting in every single fight he's in. They want to make everybody on every team exciting. So they're more focused on the whole team's being exciting and lifting the whole team up rather than picking and choosing. Now, there are some standouts like Davis Asari and like the guy who won the PGF last year, who just won
Andy Varela.
Andy
Yeah.
Varela, absolute superstars, and the evil man of the PGF, Elijah Carlton.
There's Elijah, Nathan
Yes.
Haddad as well, but Elijah, I'm sorry.
Love watching them roll, and specifically because there's so many storylines intertwined with everybody. And like there was one guy, Ethan or Evan something, I can't remember his exact name, the blonde-haired guy, who kind of did some not okay things after some matches, during some matches with the pushing and slapping, and the Elkins brothers had to kind of talk to him.
You're talking about Evan, yeah.
Yes. And now they're all cool now, and I'm all for being cool. But there is a time and a place for smacking, pushing, a little too rough.
Well, it's crazy you say that because in two separate organizations, I saw two different brawls this week. There was two different organizations that were doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournaments that ended up in fistfights. And to me, that's really, really, really silly. It's like we all came here to agree to be professionals and compete in a sport, and it's not a good look for anyone. And so, especially if that's something that occurs, I don't necessarily look at passing it around and showing it as like a cool thing is necessarily a good idea if you're looking to draw people into such a sport. But same as you, UFC BJJ had Nathan Haddad, Elijah Carlton, also Andy Varela, and it had Davis Asare. Davis Asare and Andy actually competed in the semifinals to move on to the finals. And Nathan had a really good match with Andy before that. Elijah had a great match with Jason Nolf, beat Jason Nolf by split decision, kind of like what I'm saying. If you didn't do the decisions, I think that if you were able to give however much time needed, or if the rules were more aligned, Elijah probably gets that win within the time frame. If not, an overtime that actually comes to some sort of conclusion would have been nice. But Elijah actually got hurt. He got hurt arm wrestling. They cut all of this film out. So I got a little bit of inside scoop from the old interwebs. And they cut all of the film out of Elijah arm wrestling people and actually injuring his arm in that. He came into it with a thumb injury already, a little bit banged up, but it's a great opportunity. He's not going to pass it up. Amazing jiu-jitsu player. I mean, just awesome to watch. When you watch him compete, he's always a sight to behold. He's always going to be bringing the action. He's not one of those people that's laying back. He's not letting it happen to him. He's trying to dictate what's going on. So I've always been a big, big Elijah fan. But Andy, man, I got to tell you, he's taken the show for me. He stepped in at a couple different times and really just showed his maturity and his experience on the mats. There were times where, you know, there's a physical game to be played. There's also a mental game to be played. And I feel like Andy showed that he has a little bit of the competitive edge in the mental game. And I'm actually looking for him to pull up the upset against the number one seed. But yeah, best of luck to Andy. Best of luck to all the PGF vets, man. It's great to see the PGF having talent that's at that level. I mean, we've watched it where I was watching it when it was in a Butler building. And then I watch people like Elijah Carlton travel all over the country and they're beating people and people are getting upset and going, oh, no, this guy didn't beat me fair. You know, oh, I was this, I was that. And it's like, no, these guys are definitely here to stay. They're definitely part of professional jiu-jitsu from now until forever. And it's been really cool to get to watch the very first season and see some people that I've actually watched compete doing a great job, man, and being great ambassadors of the sport. Nathan Haddad, great ambassador of the sport. David Sorry, great ambassador of the sport. Really just, I feel like putting on what you want to see out of jiu-jitsu and what you want your children to see out of jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And that goes back to the class thing, how,
Right.
and also kind of the thing that Davis Asare did when the guy reached out to touch gloves. They weren't wearing gloves, but,
Yeah.
and he double legged him. You said it perfectly. He was going in for a double leg from the whistle, from go. He was jogging at him. Who's going to high five anybody that's jogging at you in a fight?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. And it's like, I understand because I've been to the classes and I do get that, like, oh, it's jujitsu etiquette to slap and bump all of the time. But at the same time, like, at what point is etiquette not good for you? Right. And it's like, well, if etiquette gets your ankle popped, then it's probably not a good choice for etiquette in that scenario. When you agree to compete with somebody for money, I would say if you shook hands at the weigh-in, if you shook hands before the match, then that's really good enough. Other than that, I would protect yourself at all times. That's the number one thing that's said at every opening of every event that you hear. Protect yourself at all times. Touch gloves, you know. And it's like, I get it. You know, sitting in the UFC, you don't have gloves to touch or whatever. I get the slap and bump. I totally understand that it's part of it. They're not going to stop the match just because you were ready for a slap and bump and you got put on your head. You know what I mean?
And also huge shout out to Matt, Marcus, and Jake Elkins and 10th Planet Birmingham and Ironclad Wrestling and 10th Planet in general. We appreciate you guys so much. We love the content. We really, really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Extremely educational. If you're looking to get ahead on your wrestling, Ironclad is a great resource. A lot of free YouTube content. if you want to get up to speed on what's occurring now, because there's a big difference between what was happening in 2010 and what's happening today, and the way these kids wrestle. And so if you want to get caught up to speed on wrestling, Jake's a great resource at Ironclad Wrestling. And then with Matt, he's doing everything from MMA coaching. He's coaching jiu-jitsu. He's got his own program running, 10th Planet Birmingham. It's going great, man. Super proud of him. Great to see a friend of mine really grow and experience some great success, and people really know how great he is, because it's, I've known him since I was 6 years old, so I think he's great, but it's nice when other people start realizing how cool he is. But,
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about this the other day. We were just running around doing some work stuff, and there's a bond you have with certain people that you grew up with.
yeah.
And Matt is one of those people, and Marcus and Jake are those people, and we love them unconditionally, and we will have their back no matter what.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you just know the caliber of person when you start talking to them. And that's one of my favorite things about jujitsu too, is that I do feel like once you roll a few times with people and you kind of experience their emotions through their body, you kind of understand some of the people that you want to be around and some of the people you don't, and that's always been a cool thing for me. It's been great to be united by grappling with those guys, and have done it for so long. But yeah.
But shout out to everybody at the PGF. We appreciate y'all for putting out the beautiful content. And we are going to roll into our next segment, which is our favorite fighters, kind of how we got into the sport and things like that. So, would you want to go first on that and kind of tell me?
I know you're ready. You go
I
ahead.
am. I am. So, I have two favorite fighters of all time. My favorite fighters are Frank Mir and Max Holloway. And Frank Mir, when I kind of got into watching the sport, because I'm a little younger, 5 years behind, got in a little later, not much behind. I've been watching it the whole time, but didn't really know what was going on until I started watching Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar, and kind of those people, the Minotauro Nogueiras, the Mirko Krokops, and all them in the UFC. I didn't get to know about Pride until later. And just seeing Frank Mir submit everybody at the heavyweight division where everyone is knocking chins off of bodies. And it's just such a different style. And he was doing it to everybody, and no one seemed to be able to stop him. Even the machine that is Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Got his arm bent a little too far. Game over. World champ. I just love that upset story because no one really thought that he was going to do anything like that.
Everybody knew that he was good, but nobody thought that he was about to step in front of Brock Lesnar and do very much.
Yeah. Because he looks like a superhuman. It's like watching Uberim, Alistair Overeem back in the day. You just look at those type of people and you just go, are we really in the same class right now? Because this doesn't look real.
Yeah. I don't feel like you're a human.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're not.
Exactly. And my current favorite fighter is Max Holloway. He is the epitome of a fighter. He is a martial artist. He is very respectful of people around him. He is very aware of his surroundings and what he is doing inside of whatever he is in, what conversation, what situation with the UFC, with other fighters, with the fans. He's so aware of it and you can see it. And I appreciate that because he's going out of his way not to hurt anybody in a way that he's not meaning to. Now, he will hurt some people with his words, and he will let you know that he is the best boxer in the UFC, and he'll punch you while he's not looking at you, which is the most gangster moment in UFC history, in my opinion.
Yes.
That and the roar of Robbie Lawler when he had the split lip, those two are the epitome of being a fighter to your core.
You're talking about split lip with Rory, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a war, by the way. Great fighter from back in the day, Rory McIlroy, the Red King. He went over to Bellator, had a lot of success, just wasn't able to really put it together or string it together the way that they thought that he would in the UFC. They kind of framed him as a GSP clone, and don't get me wrong, phenomenal guy, but like we're talking about, when you run into Robbie Lawler, I mean, Robbie Lawler's been a legend for his whole life. He started at like 18, 19 years old, same as Vitor Belfort, and kind of to roll into my favorite fighters and that kind of thing. That's right up my alley. I'm looking for the brawlers. I'm looking for the people that impose their will. Maybe at times are outmatched with technique or maybe outmatched with skill in general, but they're able to kind of tough it out, put their heart into it, and get a better outcome. So for me, I've always been big Nick Diaz army. Nate Diaz, I love those guys. GSP fan too. Kind of two completely polar opposite people.
Yeah.
But respect for both. You know, with George, his approach and his demeanor was so professional. It was new for the sport. There wasn't a whole lot of people that were dressing in suits and doing those kind of things. There was a whole lot more tap out shirts and just bleed type stuff, if you know what I mean. But George really just set a precedent for how a champion should act, and really was very proper, almost too proper at times, but really made for a good champion in retrospect. Big Robbie Lawler fan, Vanderlei Silva, you know, like we're kind of talking about, I picked up right there in the prime time of Strikeforce, Pride, and UFC, all battling it out, trying to figure out who was going to reign supreme. So I got to see a lot of the great fights of the time. Sean, the Muscle Shark Shirt. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I love that guy. He was an absolute athletic freak. And he got in trouble for steroids, but they never actually fully came out with what the deal was. But a lot of people like that. BJ Penn, loved watching BJ Penn back in the day. I'm a sucker for high technique, but also high effort. Those are my main older time fighters, I would say. And then for today, man, I'm a big Sean Brady fan. I'm a really big Joe Pyfer fan. I think both of those guys kind of bring a little bit of that older school UFC uh, era,
Rawness.
right? And so I love it. Same thing with Anthony Smith. When Anthony Smith was really getting his feet underneath him in the UFC, he had that raw, that power, you know. And that's what I'm looking for in fighters, and that's why Sean and Joe are two of my favorite fighters right now. They're great to watch, um, not only from a technical level but from an effort level. So I would say that those are my two.
And I've also noticed this too. This is slightly off topic, but this
Yeah.
is right up the alley of who you were talking about. There is a type of fighter, and Max is this with the technique, but there is a rawness, like to the Robbie Lawlers, the Vanderlei Silvas, even Jon Jones early in his career, of like, there's an emotional aspect in their fighting, and you can feel it as they are throwing punches, kicks, throwing. Like, you could tell by the way someone throws somebody, whether they are just throwing like a competitive setting,
Right.
or they genuinely don't like this person and they are digging deep either to find a reason, or they genuinely don't like them.
Right.
Because there are sometimes, like Jon Jones, he's come up with reasons of that weren't true, kind of like Michael Jordan of, he spoke about my kids, this is not true. And Stipe, it was that
Yeah.
fight. Stipe and Jon Jones were about to fight, and Jon Jones said, "You said something about my kids." Stipe never said anything about his kids
Right.
ever. But and he went to the press conference. They asked him about it, and he's like, "What? No, what are you
Right.
talking about?" And Jon Jones went out there and fought like he said something about his children, and you could see it in that fight. It was raw, it was emotional, and he dug deep and he ruined Stipe. But there's just a that rawness has kind of fallen off. There's only probably 5 or 6 at each weight class that I could even point at and say those are raw, emotional, human fighters, and that you can see them. Now, lots of people can dig deep, but when you see it like that Rory and Robbie Lawler fight, yeah, there's not many people that not only wouldn't survive the fight, but couldn't have gotten out of there fast enough.
Right.
They would have given up. That was the best fight in UFC history, in my opinion. That is one of my favorites that I go back and watch probably once every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I have to just get that, because there's not a whole lot of fights like that anymore.
Right. That's the biggest thing that I miss from the Just Bleed days too, is the aggression and the hunting for the finish. Now you'll hear it from the corners. You heard it from the corners, even in UFC BJJ. There's a lot of battling for the end of the round to try to impress somebody at the end of the round, or to do something at the very end of the round to just get you over the hump. And to me, it's like, why would you wait for 4 minutes and then in the last minute perform well and then be rewarded for it? I don't really like that. For me, I want to see somebody where if you do have somebody in trouble, you are working toward that finish. I understand the worst thing in the world to be when you're trying to knock someone out is tired, and then that person get their energy back and then knock you out. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I do think that a lot of people, especially in the championship fights, they're going, okay, this is going to be 5 rounds. I need to sustain my gas tank for 5 rounds. Where it would be a lot nicer if you just got them out of there in 2 rounds.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And there's a lot more of the 15 seconds, and then as soon as they hear the clack at 10, they're walking away from someone, throwing their hands up.
Right.
And I'm just thinking to myself, what if that dude sprinted at you and just put you to sleep?
Right.
And that's 100% for the judges. When you raise
Yeah.
your hands up and you're, yeah, I did this. That's 100% for
You're
the
trying to
three
get the
people.
crowd and the judge.
Yeah. You're trying to get the crowd to roar and you're trying to get those three people on the side to look at you and go, yeah, he won that round. He's victory.
Yep.
Doesn't work like that. You have to throw the punches, the kicks, and grapple a lot of the time. To be the best in the world, you do have to grapple. But
Yeah.
man, speaking of which, the Kamaru Usman thing, everyone
Mhm.
kind of counting him out.
Yeah.
Everyone slept on that grappling.
Yep.
Everybody slept on the grappling of Kamaru Usman, and I was so happy to see that. He brought it back. He said, I still know how to do this.
That's
It
right.
didn't leave. I was just trying to please the crowd, and it did cost him a championship. But he had some money fights with Jorge Masvidal. I mean, it's not like he's missing out on a whole lot. And I think he probably could become champion again.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking along the similar lines. I'm thinking that with that division, the way it's set up, there's a few fights that I feel like are obvious that need to happen, and I think that
Mhm.
Kamaru is definitely going to have one more chance to challenge for the championship at least. Bilal wants to fight him. That's a great fight. That's a great fight also to determine who is going to be the next person challenging for that belt. And so I'd love to see Bilal and him fight. That would be my favorite fight that I could make today.
And we've never seen anyone hold Bilal or Usman down. So I will say this. If they can't get each other to the ground, that has the potential to be an amazing fight.
Exactly.
They will start throwing, and we know Kamaru has knockout power. He put out game bread.
Yeah.
Not many people are knocking out Jorge Masvidal.
I mean, he knocked the sweat off his head too. It was
Yes.
terrifying.
Yes, it was one of the craziest knockouts, and it was so amazing to see. Like, that was I wish I could be in that stadium when that happened, because we felt it when we went to go see Usman Buckley. When the crowd goes nuts, that
Mm.
wind that just flies upward to the roof of the stadium,
Yes.
it is an amazing feeling. For something like that to happen in that setting, oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine the hurricane it would feel like you are standing in with that energy.
Oh yeah, man. It had to be unbelievable. That was an unbelievable fight. It was so well built, and Jorge was on such a great run and doing just things that you couldn't really even believe. I mean, when he knocked out Ben Askren, I just remember just really being more terrified than anything else because the way that Ben fell and the way that all of it kind of occurred, it was a little bit scary.
Yes.
And then once you saw it afterwards, you're like, wow, I think Jorge Masvidal might be able to beat anyone in the world right now. And he just happened to run into one of the baddest dudes on the planet, and Marty from Nebraska is no one to play with. And I think that Kamaru still has it. I know that he's older, but I think he still has it. I think that him and Bilal would have some really good exchanges. And like you're saying, if they grapple, it's going to be great. It's going to be competitive. There's going to be some up and down. It's not going to be one person holding the other person down for a whole minute. You know what I mean? Or they can't grapple and then they actually fight, which would be even better because Bilal actually has some really good boxing. Maybe I shouldn't say really good, but I will say he's a talented boxer. And Kamaru obviously holds a lot of power in his hands. So, I would see it very similar to the way like a Colby Covington fight rolls out with Bilal and then Kamaru just doing vintage Kamaru stuff is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
But that'd be great.
And Bilal has the gas tank to do something like a Colby duration where I'm throwing 100,000 strikes at
Yep.
you, block them all. They might not be the hardest strikes when they come through, but I'll hit you 50 times per round.
Right.
And if he can do that to Kamaru, that would be the most impressive. I don't even know how to describe it. It would be one of the biggest upsets, in my opinion, of Kamaru's career by far, because he's never lost to anybody like that.
Yeah, I would say that maybe not an upset just because of how good Bilal is, but in terms of looking at your career, it would be
Yes.
the lowest ranking loss that he had. Unfortunately, the only two people that he's lost to other than that are Leon Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev. So a little bit biased on that side, but I think it'd be a great fight. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully they'll make it.
Yep. And Hamzat's not human. He's not human. He is send location. He is. But so our next segment, we're going to be getting into Jon Jones and what to do with that, because that is a extremely difficult situation to swallow right now. He says he's retired. The UFC says he's retired. They already put out a tweet that said fighter removed from the roster. I don't know how I feel about that. I really think it's going to be one of those situations where they end up putting something together outside with the PFL for an Ngannou, or they bring him back and make a special exemption like they did for Brock Lesnar. I really truly think this is probably a money thing, if I had to guess, because Jon Jones has already said he wants to fight. He's said it on multiple platforms. He's been on YouTube, Twitter, all these different things. Dana even said the fight was made. They're just waiting on a time. And he already said they were planning on announcing it for Madison Square Garden. So that all those pieces came together, and then Jon Jones suddenly retired. Everyone's saying he's ducking, he's ducking, he's ducking. I don't think Jon Jones is ducking anybody. He's playing the long game, which has benefited him for his entire career. I mean, the only time he's ever, quote, ducked anybody was Chael Sonnen. And that was because him and Dan Henderson were teammates, and he thought there was some kind of collusion thing going on right there, because that guy's teammate just happened to stand up and say, "I'll fight" on short notice. And he was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I went from a striker to a wrestler. And I get that.
He
If you're
still ended
planning,
up fighting him later. He just didn't fight him at that time.
yep,
You know what I
and
mean?
won.
Right.
He did bust a bone out of his toe. And that was
Horrific.
woo. That was an interesting thing. I don't ever want to see that again. And literally, if Chael would have made it to the bell, I think there was 20 seconds left when he TKO'd him. If he would have made it to the bell, Chael Sonnen would be the champion of the world.
Really? I have to go back and rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah. And that's crazy to think about. Like, Chael Sonnen is the closest to beating Jon Jones of anybody we've ever seen.
And Anderson Silva up until Chris Weidman caught him. Chael Sonnen really had the ability to beat two of the best fighters in the history of time. And it's unfortunate for him that he happened to be in both of their weight classes at both times. You don't really know that Jon Jones is about to be Jon Jones when he's in his 20s. And you don't really recognize that Anderson Silva is going to go on an over 10 title defense run until he's already at 8 or 9. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where in retrospect, you look back and you feel bad. But yeah, man, that was a good fight. And I agree. I agree that Jon Jones has to do something. If he doesn't do something, I don't have a great feeling about like what the future may hold for him. I think that he's really good when he's very busy and when he has a goal to achieve, kind of like we were talking about. Maybe somebody be mad at. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for me and Jon Jones, I'm on your page. I think that fighting Francis is really the only option now because he burned his bridge with the UFC. So Tom Aspinall's off the page, Cyril Gahn's off the page, anyone else is off, which realistically speaking, the only person that was employed by the UFC that Jon Jones should ever even consider fighting is Tom. And I think that's part of the reason why there was such a rocky ship to it was if Tom is the only person that you're really ever going to fight and get any shine for, why stay around and defend a belt and fight people that you don't know with the ability to ruin your perfect record?
And Jon said this: if he beats Tom, what does he gain from that?
Right.
Nothing. There's always going to be a young, up and coming killer. Like, Tom is that guy right now.
Right.
He is the young, up and coming killer. And he has slain every guy across his entire career doing that exact same thing. So what is the point in sticking around and just slaying these upcoming killers until eventually one gets you? There's no point. So I give it an 80% chance that he comes back still. Even though he is, quote, retired, I do not think he's gone. I think it is 100% a play to either get the UFC, because he is still contracted. He can't fight without them. It will force Dana's hand to co-promote with the PFL, or it would be something along the lines of someone temporarily signs with the UFC for that one fight kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, have you heard about the legal trouble? So Jon Jones is in some legal trouble for, I believe it was a case in February, where they're trying to basically pin another hit and run on him, which when I say that, I obviously feel like I'm taking a side. I'm not sure what occurred. But they released body cam footage today. And in the body cam footage, you have Jon Jones on the phone with a woman who has been in a car wreck, and she is in the passenger seat. The airbags have been deployed. The car's not tumped over or anything, and they have basically the entire screen blocked where she would be. So you can't really tell what the driver's seat looks like or what any of the interior of the car looks like. But There's a police officer there speaking with her. Jon is on the phone. He made a few suggestive comments as far as maybe you could consider it to be in the realm of threats and that kind of thing. I don't really know. I couldn't really understand where he was coming from or what the goal of even being on the phone was at the time with the police being there. But that's what a lot of people are alluding to may be an issue with Jon. But we all know we've seen Jon get in trouble several times and still fight. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's the only thing that contributed to it, but I do think it's probably a contributing factor. I hope the best for him. I hope the best for all people that get in trouble, obviously. I think that everybody deserves the ability to redeem themselves, but sad to see. Really was hoping to see him fight, but looks like I might have to be waiting for a while.
So this could be a situation similar to the Connor situation where he just has to really clear up that legal trouble before he actually decides I can focus on fighting.
Right.
Because Connor had so much going on top of the legal trouble. Like he's Conor McGregor. He is the UFC, the face of the UFC. And on top of all his, I'll call it responsibilities of promoting things
Mhm.
and just being there for a face of the UFC at all these press conferences, at all these meetings, and flying around the world and doing everything that he has to do, along with owning a bar in Ireland and getting in trouble owning that. But he had that legal trouble when he was about to fight Dustin,
Yeah.
when he ended up breaking his leg, Anderson Silva style, which
Golly, dude.
horrendous. But he had legal trouble leading into that fight, which bumped it back. So this could be one of those situations 100% where he's just waiting for this legal trouble to give up. And then he kind of gets a special exemption from the UFC for his last fight. And he could come back and fight Tom if he wanted to. Because the UFC would make an exception for Jon Jones.
Right.
They would make an exception for Brock Lesnar today.
Right. I think I'm on it with you. I think most likely Netflix will get the UFC contract. And then once Netflix has the UFC contract and probably about 6 months goes by, the PFL and the UFC will team up and co-promote Francis versus Jon on Netflix. That would be the best fight that you could make to me. Francis versus Jon on Netflix, take my money easily.
100%.
Also, on top of it, you don't have to take my money. You can just take my Netflix subscription instead of charging me $80 for it. Please, please.
Yes.
But
I think that if it goes to Netflix, it will explode because as mainstream as ESPN is, it is still not Netflix.
right,
Getting into the ESPN app, we've had trouble logging
Trash.
into the ESPN app and just getting the correct login because we've had to make multiple accounts. So getting into it, ordering the fight, getting it cast to a TV, or if the TV is capable, downloading the app and going in and doing it all on the TV. And some TVs do that a little better than others. Our previous TV, it's half of the size of what we watch the UFC on right now.
Mm.
That TV was phenomenal.
Twice as good.
Yes, and just ordering the fight, getting it up and running, and just rolling. This TV, it's a little harder now. It is twice the size, and it is a way better picture. Super thankful because that is a theater. But it's just so different. Even if you are casting from the app, the
Mhm.
app will give you issues. Now, that's not to say ESPN is at fault for that or whatever. Bugs happen in apps. I have been using computer apps, phone apps, basically my entire adult life, and probably up all the way down through middle school. But it's just there are quirks that have to be bumped and moved and fixed. So it just needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I think that if Dana White wants people to stop stealing all of his events and people actually just watch them, I think that Netflix would be the best way to go because 98% of the people that I know have a Netflix, and then you eliminate the need to steal it from anywhere because you can actually access it and it be accessible on your television properly, easy to set up, smooth, where ESPN just hasn't really proven to be the smoothest app. And, I've had ESPN Plus for many years now, and I haven't really been able to utilize it the way that you would think you do because it's so much information and it's really not useful. And then when you get around to the stuff that you want to see, you click on an article, the article doesn't even work. So I'm looking forward to the UFC going to Netflix, hopefully.
Let's get into this. Let's pull this down a little bit. All right. Topuria versus Oliveira. We're going to start at the top. because this fight is too good to not talk about right now. So, Ilya Taporia, he's already ranked third in the lightweight division coming up from being champion at featherweight. He just knocked out my favorite fighter of all time, Max Holloway. Broke my heart, made me want to scream cry. So, I have to roll with Taporia in this fight because I really just don't think there's a better fighter at the moment, besides maybe Islam Makhachev, that's even around that fighting category.
Yeah, I think that Tuporia is one of the baddest men alive right now. I actually heard him talking about even considering the possibility of moving up another weight class and going to 170. He's a little bit short for 170, but I don't necessarily write him off at any weight or any height because he's proven me wrong every time that I've said that he was going to do something different. I feel like he has the heart of a champion. He speaks like a champion. He acts like a champion. He does champion things. He's not out partying. There's not a lot of footage of him in a bar at 2 a.m. just dancing around. He's in the gym. He's doing the right things. Now, of course, on the other hand, you have Charles Oliveira, who's also doing all of the same things. Extremely tough guy. As you can see, he's got 10 losses, but it really doesn't tell the tale of his career because in the first half of his career, he may have had some stumbling blocks. And now in the second half of his career, he's fought some of the best in the world, but insanely talented grappler. Developed power in his hands, I feel like, later. The older he gets, the more power I feel like he's carrying into the fights. You know, with Tuporia, he has every piece of the puzzle. I feel like to me, he's one of the generation of developed for MMA. You know,
Mhm.
he did start in wrestling and all that kind of thing, but his skill set is very well rounded. I wouldn't say that he leans on his wrestling necessarily. I would say he utilizes whatever's open to him. So I've got Taporia, but I'm definitely a big fan of Charles, and I am looking forward to seeing how Elia solves this problem because it's going to be no walk in the park. Charles is going to be trying to throw up submissions 24/7. As soon as he gets close to him, he's going to be attacking him. He's throwing elbows hard. He's throwing leg kicks. It's going to be a mess.
And as soon as you go to defend any of those, he can snap your ankle, your arm. He can get that neck and choke you in a second. He is the most dangerous ground game guy in the UFC. And I'm not talking about like the Kamaru where he could take you down and just batter you with elbows. He is the all around on the ground king as soon as that fight goes down. And this is kind of how I think about this fight. Justin Gaethje wrestled. He couldn't keep Charles off of him. So if Ilya can keep him off of him, he can win that fight. And he has the power to put someone to sleep. But I have a hard time betting against Taporia. And it could be my bias 100% because he beat my favorite fighter and I have to roll with him because it makes his loss look better. And I'm so rolling with Taporia on this. I need
Right.
this. I need this emotionally right now. And Oliveira's got a 74-inch reach compared to Taporia's 69-inch reach. It could make a difference, but he's definitely a little longer and taller.
I think that the fighter's footwork matters more than anything. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like reach is definitely important, but a lot of times you'll see people that have a reach advantage that don't come from a striking background and they're incapable of covering the distance that you need to cover really to make your reach
Matter.
useful. If you can get inside or you can stay outside, whichever one, either or, that's really good. But if you get in and you can't get back out or vice versa, then it's not really useful.
100%. I think I think Charles has great footwork, but I think Ilya's footwork is probably second to none right now. There is very few like Max. He has some of the best footwork, not only just in featherweight, that we have ever seen in the UFC at any weight class. There are very few fighters that have better footwork than him. And I think Taporia out footworked him in that fight. He was able to close that distance and put his fist on his chin.
Well, like you're saying, Max is such an amazing boxer that when Taporia went out there, I was doing the same thing. I was like, oh, Max got the reach. Max has got, I feel like, the boxing skill. And then the more I watched, the more I doubted what I thought, you
Yep.
know? And sure enough, I mean, he obviously pulled it out and solved the problem. But I feel like Taporia is on the upswing. He's probably going to keep going up right here.
Yep. I agree. All right, rolling to the co-main event, we have Alexandra Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. I love both of these fighters. I have adored the career of Kai Kara France coming up, the way he has fighting anybody who will stand in front of him. And I also love Pantoja's ability. He's been doubted before he was champion, doubted every step of the way to the championship. Even in his championship fight, no one thought he was going to win. He was the underdog. And he just marched and marched and marched. There was no one who stood in front of him that could be like how you were saying about Taporia, the new version of MMA, born to be a full mixed martial artist. He has the ground game. He has power. Now, it hasn't been the put you to sleep power, but it's the kind that makes you fall on your back long enough that he's able to hammer fist you and the ref stops it. And he's done that in so many fights. And he is so well rounded that I really think that Kai Kara France is going to have a real issue standing in front of him. And he's going to try to take him down, and it's not going to go well.
I think it'll be a battle of wills. I think that Pantoja is unbelievable, extremely talented. I think that possibly by the time we get to the end of his career, we might actually be talking in the pound for pound greatest of all time level type stuff. Especially, I've even thought about his ability to move up in weight. That would be exciting. The only thing is obviously they're on the shorter end of things. But like we're kind of talking about with Tuporia, I don't necessarily believe all of that stuff that everybody else believes. I believe that the best fighter usually wins. And MMA math also usually works out too. If you look at people, usually when somebody has a streak of wins by submission, they're going to continue to win by submission and that kind of thing. And I think that Pantoja is obviously at the top right now, holding that spot down. I see what you're seeing in Kai Kara France. I see that he's poised to come in and be, the next generation, but I say not so fast. I think that Pantoja still has a few more years up there at the top elite level of the game. And I really do. I foresee him moving before losing.
Me too. I think he could make a run at featherweight, honestly.
Yeah.
I really do. Because they are, or actually, bantamweight, because this is
He's 125
flyweight. Yep.
flyweight.
I think he could move up to
135
135 and do some real damage. This is probably going to be what I'm going to call the most underrated fight of the night. Beneil Dariush versus Hanato Money Moicano. And they are both, I would give the edge to Dariush on the feet. I think he has very underrated power. He has very underrated hands, footwork, and it kind of looks a little sloppy, is the word, I guess. He is still very sharp. It just is an unorthodox look as he is standing there. So it doesn't make him look as dangerous, but I think Hanato Moicano, he has fought literally the who's who. He is game to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. He literally took Islam Makhachev on short notice. I don't know many people that would ever do that. Max Holloway is one of those people who was willing to come up a weight class and do that, but I think he's the only one. And having that, I really think if he gets this fight to the ground, I think Hanato Moicano wins.
Yeah, Moicano, again, kind of like we were talking about with Kara France, looking back on his career is going to look a lot better than when we watched it in real time. He's fought a lot of really, really tough dudes. I like Dariush. I'm a fan of Dariush. Kind of like you're saying, maybe unrefined as far as his footwork goes. He doesn't necessarily look like a traditional striker that grew up in it since he was 5 years old necessarily. But talk about a warrior, always in the fight. So I'm looking forward to watching these two dudes really duke it out. But I got to go with Moicano too. He's just, I know that he lost recently. I can't remember who he lost to, but he was on a good streak and he lost. It might have been Islam. And, losing to Islam is not really necessarily a negative thing when you think about Islam is now the pound for pound best today, now that Jon Jones has been removed. So I believe in Moicano. I think he's got a lot of time left. I think he's got a lot of talent left. I think he's going to put on some more good shows for us. I'm looking forward to the show at UFC 317.
And I will say this too, they are very similar reach and height, which kind of favors that stand up and fight.
Mhm.
I don't think Moicano is going to dive straight away for his legs and try to get him down and wrestle him. I really think this is going to be a first round stand up on the feet and have a war with each other for a while before all of this goes down. So I am really, really looking forward to it.
I think they'll be figuring it out too for a while.
Yep. Brandon Royval versus Joshua Vaughn. This is two murderers coming in to this fight. They are both right at the peak. I mean, they are both extremely well rounded. I think they're both primed for a title shot. This has to be a number one contenders fight. It just has to be in my eyes. I mean, I could see both of these guys being champion in their careers very easily.
It's funny that you say that because Brandon Royval actually came out recently and said that if he doesn't get a title shot after winning this fight, then he's moving up to 35. And he's 5'9", so he can handle the weight. I think he'll probably move up to that weight anyways.
Yeah. And if he does, there's a lot of dudes at 135 that will have a huge issue handling him. Because even at 135, he's 5'9". There's not a whole lot of people at 135 that are even 5'9". He's bigger than those guys. So I will say it's been a huge advantage to him to be bigger at this weight class. If he gets the win, I don't think he'll move up. I think they will give him a title shot. They just have to.
I think
And
they have to.
if Josh Vaughn wins this fight, I think Royval would move up and he would cause some damage to a lot of people. And I think the first fight that they should do would be Kai France. I think that would be amazing if they both moved up and fought at 135. So I think that could be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know Vaughn well enough, really. I need to go and watch a little bit of tape on him. I've seen some of his highlight stuff, but you know how it is. When you watch a highlight, everybody looks great. I'd rather watch him actually fight an entire fight and really get a better grasp on it. But I've got Royval for sure.
Yep, same. Rolling on to Peyton Talbot and Felipe Lima. So I don't know Lima that well. I've seen him probably twice that I can remember. There's probably another time that I can't think of at the moment. But Peyton Talbot, he is a problem. He is a major problem at this weight class. And he's got hands, and he's not scared to go to the ground. He's not the sharpest in either category, but I give him 8.5, 9 out of 10 in both of those categories. But it just depends on who you're grading him against or what is the peak to say that. And I really think Peyton Talbot takes this.
I'm with you. I think that it, like you're saying, it depends on who shows up. So Talbot actually lost recently, which was the first of his career. But when he's on, he's one of the best strikers in the UFC, without a doubt. And you can debate it, but you can go and watch the footage too. And his striking's extremely crisp. He's well timed, and he's really feeling it. If you watch him fight, he's feeling it in there. That's a big thing for me, kind of like we're talking about with who we're pulling for as fighters. When I see a guy in there that looks like he's doing it naturally versus a guy who's going, all right, I'm going to go left. All right, I'm going to step here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He looks well oiled. I'm feeling him moving forward. So,
and on the prelims, my goodness, what a main event for the prelims. This, oh my gosh. Jack Hermanson versus Gregory Rodriguez, dude. RoboCop. This has the potential to be a amazing fight because the first fight we ever watched on the new TV was RoboCop.
Right.
And Jack Hermanson obviously been there, done that, fought the who's who. He is not scared of anybody. He is kind of that Viking mentality. He's game to fight anywhere, anyway. And he is a pretty well-rounded fighter, I would say. He's not the greatest on the ground, but he is, like I said, he's probably an 8 out of 10. And it's kind of this weight class that does it to me.
Yeah.
Because there are those people that are just anomalies, the Hamzat Shemaevs, the Usmans, the what is the Dagestan guy? I can't think of his name.
You talking about? No, you're talking about 185. Umar Nurmagomedov. Yeah.
There are just those freak athletes that are just, they were born to wrestle,
right?
And they've done it their whole life. And it kind of goes to the idea of a lot of those small inflections, emotional on the ground. Some people kind of get flustered when someone's up on top of you, up near your neck. A lot of people are able to keep their cool and they know what to do, and they'll swim out. They'll turn the way they're supposed to turn. And Hermanson, he has most of that. It's just hard to compare him to someone like a Hamzat Shemaev who's in that weight class. But I think he has way better wrestling than RoboCop. So if it goes to the ground, I've got Hermanson. and he's not scared on the feet either. So I'm probably going to take him overall in this fight. But RoboCop is not to be slept on.
RoboCop surprises us a lot. He's extremely tough. He's obviously taken plenty of acai in his life. Absolutely freak of nature. Looks like a cartoon on television. So he's definitely not to be doubted. Jack Hermanson, though, has shown, like you're saying, well roundedness, the ability to really push it a little bit further than I may have thought. I've definitely counted him out in a few fights where he's really surprised me. So I think that Jack will probably be able to pull it out. But I don't really see it going to decision. I think that either Jack gets a sub or RoboCop gets a TKO victory, probably within 3 rounds.
And Hermanson's gone to decision his past couple of fights, so he's kind of due. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here with the Face the Pain podcast. I appreciate each and every one of y'all, and we will see y'all again next week. And have a blessed day.
Thank you all.